Hey, what's up? This is Mike.
And this is O'Teal, and you are back again with the Comes a Time podcast.
Dude, this one is one for the ages. The self-proclaimed director of transportation, Mickey Hart, one of the most unbelievable people to ever. O'Teal, I had such a great time listening to you too. I was 20% podcast host, 80% nerd during that one.
It was definitely a chance for me to nerd out because so many of my heroes, I think most people don't know, and Mickey knows all of them. And I was just like, oh man, I can't believe, So it was fun for me to be like a little fanboy for.
Well, I had to one-up fan you when I was like, I got to hear about Jerry. I got to hear about Jerry. Well, the thing that's cool about Mickey too is that and if anybody that's listening only knows him as Grateful Dead or whatever, I mean, he literally created a genre of music in the, categorization of things like world music. It's wild the things that he was able to accomplish.
Yeah, and putting all those people together from different cultures, wow, don't we need more of that right now?
Yeah.
But that's what he's always been about, and that's what they've always been about, and that's a lot of what we talk about, and it's a great episode.
That's right. And guys, as always, we want to remind you that Comes a Time is part of the Osiris Media family. You can check out all the great Osiris podcasts at osirispod.com.
And please go to Apple or wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe and review us. Give us those 5 stars, baby.
Yeah, come on. Who else you giving them to? We love you guys. Enjoy Mickey Hart.
Comes a time when the blind man takes your hand, says, don't you see?
What's up? O'Teal here again.
And this is Mike, and welcome back to another episode of Comes a Time. Today we are joined by the director of transportation himself, Mickey Hart. Hi.
Indeed. Well, hi, Mike, and of course, OT, how are you this morning?
Excellent, man. Good to have one half of the rhythm. I should say 1/3 of the Rhythm Devils.
That's right. Well, actually, Sally, he was horned once. One night we had a horning ceremony for Jeff, and so he's an official Rhythm Devil as well. So
that's right.
A little bit.
Hey, guys, for the layperson, what's a horning ceremony?
Oh, a horning ceremony is when Bill and I bring someone in, to the Rhythm Devils, and And O'Teal earned his horns, I might say, quite well, and still does, and so does Jeff. So yeah, that's a horning ceremony. They get their horns, and and they get their staff, and
got a cape too.
And they get the cape. You got to get a red cape, and yeah, we have great pictures of our horning ceremonies. They're always fun. Backstage, right after a real. Rhythm Devil experience, shall we say.
Oh, okay.
I got lucky because I actually had mine on stage. It was a surprise. I didn't even know it was going to happen.
Oh, did I horn you on stage?
Yeah.
No. How can I do that in front of all those people? Oh, my God. I'm sorry.
You and Bill both.
I was just carried away in a moment, but yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, I got some great pictures there because Jay Blakesburg got some great pictures.
Did you share them with me? I'd love to see them.
Yeah. I thought I posted them, but I'll definitely send them to you.
Would you send that? It'd be fun.
I was flanked on either side by you and Bill.
I do remember.
Nice. You can't put the cape over me, and I got that big mask with the huge antler.
Were we playing a song at the time or no? No.
I think it was right before something. I think it was right before a second set.
Okay.
I think.
Wow.
It's a big day for me.
Holy cow, yeah.
Good day, be horned.
Well, that drum setup, man, it's like, wow. I started on drums, so at 5 years old. So that was, the Allman Brothers had a massive drum setup. But you guys, whoa,
No.
there's just like so many things. It's just every
Yeah.
drummer's like, it's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, that's how we feel. Absolutely. Yeah, we like a lot of drums around us. That's the thing that me and Bill always said, when we were playing stuff, playing back there, we started and we said, we just have a lot of stuff, no matter what. Even if you fall into something, it'll make a sound,
Yeah. Better more than less.
So that's where the mask came from originally.
I think I have fallen into a couple things back.
Yeah.
You turn and you're like, ding. Like,
well, you're moving fast, and people remember you have the objects going up and down real fast by your head. So that ain't fun. I'll tell you one story, a real funny story. So when I first built the Beast, we were in San Rafael, and I just started practicing on it with the big sticks. You have to practice. And then, so Ramrod was there, just me and Ramrod. And I said, Ramrod, how about let's get some burgers? So Ramrod, he runs out and gets a couple of cheeseburgers. And when he came back, I was out cold, but I still had the stick in my hand and a big bump on my head. So I actually knocked myself out the first time I was really trying to really dig in deep on home plate, the big guy. I knocked myself out. Ramrod woke me up, and I said, "You got the stick in your hand."
He said, "Here's your cheeseburger, Mickey."
Cheeseburger.
Was it above your head? You said you were playing like this?
Yes. Well, they were coming by real fast, and I didn't know how to, drumming above your, your chest is different than drumming down. When you're out here, the sticks are flying across your face, and if you're not used to doing it, they get very wishy-washy, and you can't be wishy-washy when you have sticks moving at 100 miles an hour past your ear. So that's what happened.
You're standing in the on-deck circle right there.
Yeah, really.
It's such a testament. You mentioned Ramrod. It's such a testament to the crew, because for you two guys to take on what you take on every night in a different venue, to have them be able to break it up, set it back up. I mean, that's a testament to the crew right there.
Well, we ride on their backs, really. If you don't have a great crew, you can't have a great band, really. Things are going wrong and everything. We don't have to worry about anything because we know we're covered. Everybody's covering your back every which way. And so that means you could just be out there in the zone and you don't have to be worrying about this. And when they could see things going wrong before, just as you are imagining them, they're just right there and they're always watching and say, okay. And they're out before you can even tell them what to do. So that's a mean, clean, mean, rhythm machine.
Yeah, I felt guilty sometimes for like overreacting if something is going wrong, but it's so rare. I'm just like in my zone, and then something goes wrong. I'm like, what the hell? Just like you're just so thrown. And I feel, sometimes I'm like, all right, calm down, dude. Don't make the guys look bad when they're doing so good all the time. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, in the old days, when we didn't play well, we blamed, we thought we were letting down the crew, because they had set up all our gear and they had all done that. If we didn't respect that, and really play play out of our heads because they took all afternoon in the hot sun, and then we played, it wasn't, on the way out, Ramrod used to walk me on the way out, and he used to say something. When we played well, he would go, all right. And when we didn't play well, he didn't say much. He was, so I always got to know when we did well for the crew.
That's so awesome. Man, that's
and
so
a lot
cool.
of, in a lot of cases, the best bands that I've been in, the crew plays well. Like they all can play.
Yeah.
And so they know when you're.
Our crew couldn't play well. You see, it was the worst band you ever heard in your life. I think they called something then the Sparky and the Ass Bites. I think they call themselves.
The Ass Bites.
Yeah, and we would find them playing our instruments sometimes when we would come up for a sound check. It wasn't something you want to hear a second time.
I think our crew at Denton Company could play, though. I know my guy, Vadim, can play multiple instruments.
Well, yeah. Well, I've never seen you guys in those folks in full flight.
We got to see if we can get them together. Like, come on, guys. I know y'all can do it.
Opening act. We can, save a little money and,
So what you been doing this quarantine, man? Is like you been recording like crazy, or is it
every day, almost 7 days a week?
Wow.
Yeah, I'm on it all the time. I'm making the next Rhythm Devil experience with Zakir Hussain, and we're on. Well, we call ourselves the Sonic Tonic Club. Now we've got 116th versions of the 116 times the Sonic Tonic Club has met, and over this this last, I guess, 4 months. And so, I work every day remotely. The engineers are out there. Sometimes there are 3 engineers, or maybe Zakir in San Anselmo, or Renee Fleming. I did a thing with Renee, a great soprano singer, opera singer, and a classical singer. And she was in New York City. And so we were here. Zakir was in San Anselmo. But on a daily working basis, you can do this. But you have to adapt. You have to be able to see. It's different when someone's in the room. That when you're in the room and we're in the control room together, sometimes we don't even have to talk. I just know the way you look, or the way I look, that it's right. Or a glance, yeah. You can't do that like that. It's different when you're remote. But if you have worked with someone for many years, like me and Zakir for since 1970, 50 years, it's like 30 years, that went fast. So we know how to work with each other. But unless you are comfortable like that, but it can be done. We're doing it. And working on the drones, serious drone project. Sonic Tonic Club will be putting out some drones soon. And I'll send you a little. I think it'll really chill. I think you're going to really like it, Otil. I'll send you some.
I've been listening to a lot of your records the last couple of days, and I've been really struggling, just with all the emotions of everything happening. Yeah. And your records help me find some time to meditate. They're very healing, man. I really appreciate a lot of the stuff that you've done. I love the nature sounds in there. I love when I hear rain.
Absolutely.
What was the pump? The pump song? What was that? Was that an actual pump, like a water pump or something?
Voodoo.
Yeah.
It was a pump on the land we had in Nevada that went boom, 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 boom. Moses come riding up on a guitar, boom, boom. His spurs were jingling all of the drum, boom. So I took the pump, started and played what became Greatest Story over it. It was called Pump Man originally, and then it became Greatest Story Ever Told, and it was based off of the pump. And so that's how that song happened. So that's the story of the pump. It was everywhere. It went off all the time. As soon as the water ran low, pump started automatically. So it was like the sound of the land. We had 32 acres we were renting there, and that was the sound of it. So it became a song.
I love all that stuff because there's a that meter song. That was like a car. They had an old jalopy car, and when you turn the car off, after the car was turned off, it would go. So they made this group like the best funk song ever.
A muffler on a Harley, just at rest.
Yeah, idling.
It's symphony. It's a symphony.
I love how you always take those natural sounds, the music to be born by.
Yeah,
I guess that was your son's heartbeat, and then he was born to it. That
Yes,
zoned me
his
out
mother
too.
concentrated on it. That's what it was supposed to be for, so it took away the hospital room, and she was focusing on what mattered, and in training with the heartbeat of the son that was about to be born. So that's where music to be born by. And I've gotten so much mail over the years from people all over the world who have used that record in childbirth. And I mean, they come up to me and tell me these like kind of raw details about the birthing process. Oh, that's okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, but they said they love it. And yeah, that, yeah, he was a big help.
It's funny too when you hear the stories from like the record execs that were like, these guys were taking forever in the studio because they wanted to go out to the desert and record 30 minutes of just still air, and then go to the LA freeway and record 30 minutes of still. It's like you guys even like just always were looking for like the soundtrack of anything and everything to put together.
Yeah, well, we envisioned a larger sonic universe where the noise was included. We loved noise. We were noisicians, actually. In the beginning, we valued noise. Airplanes, buildings being knocked down. I know Jerry and I used to go and have hot dogs and soda pop and watch a building being destroyed by a giant swing.
Yeah, that's cool to watch.
Great. Oh, ooh, ah. And, or noise of a city, or noise of a rainforest. Because when the ear doesn't understand a sound, it calls it noise. But really, there's melody in noise, there's harmony in noise. You just have to listen. And then you'll start to recognize it musically. But unless to the untrained ear, bird would sound like noise. If you went to sleep and bird woke you up, that'd be noisy. But if you're sitting around, sun, nice day, little bird chirps over there, oh, that's nice. So it all depends what you call music and what you call noise. We were noisicians. I mean, Phil and Jerry and Bob used to just throw those guitars right into the amp, into their boxes and just let it feed back, and it was wonderful. We would just play, then the song would start, and all of a sudden they would run back. So there was many rhythm devils during a night back then. Yeah. Whenever they went back to the amplifiers, we went crazy, and it became like a very noisy, immersive, I might say, experience.
I love your whole the spirit into sound thing, that like everything is vibration. Mm-hmm. And so that encompasses what you might consider noise. I find rhythms and patterns and all kinds of noises, and so that's something I wanted to ask you about, like how that cosmology developed over time. I mean, I think as drummers we always have it instinctively, but then you really like connected some dots there, spiritually. And
well, it all comes from the singularity, from 13.8 billion years ago, the Big Bang, they call it singularity. And all vibrations, that was beat one. That was the beginning of time and space. So all of that started back then. Then 400,000 years after that, we're able to now read what it sounded like at the Big Bang. Well, 400,000 years this side of the Big Bang. And that caused the universe to inflate, and it became larger, and then the planets formed and the stars formed. And they were all about carbon, all the things that make up us. And food and everything around us. So all the vibrations came from the cosmos. A star that exploded a billion years ago, as someone said, it was the iron in your cheesecake or something like that, form. So that's the cosmology I picked up. I said, wow, everything is vibration. It comes from one source. And now we've learned to break up time and space and vibrations and use it in a musical form, because humans, when they first came together, used sounds to communicate and to warn other tribes and so forth that something is coming, just a language. And it always was verbal, and it was like rocks on rocks, wood on rocks, or stones on rocks. It was always, some kind of sonic tattoo. So once you understand that idea, then you can understand the spirituality of it all, because this is like bigger. This is the big picture, and we're just like we musicians are like the miniatures of what's happening in the cosmos, because everything is revolving and it all has an order. It's like a heavenly clockwork, and we have our 24 hours circadian rhythms, and we live within a certain time and space. And so that's how we define it, by playing music. And that's what our way of communicating at a very basic tribal, if you will, level. And that's why it means so much to people. And that's why we spend our whole life trying to make good sound. And you know how much you practiced 1 million hours to be up there on stage, just for a few hours. Can you imagine that? We played, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of hours practiced, but we only get really about 3 or 4 hours up there on stage. It's and we're lucky to do it, and we feel good to do it, and the people that we affect. Well, you see what you can do. When an audience lights up, that's it. And you're sharing the best of vibes, best of times.
I always think that, especially drums, but a lot of things, but definitely drums, coming from being taught African drums since I was like 7, I felt like those were the original psychedelics. You play drum grooves for a really long time. Like you just get into a deep trance, and you start traveling dimensions, time.
Yeah.
Things change. It's very, very much like psychedelics.
Your priorities change when you're in trance, because everything else falls away, and you're in the now, in the moment. That's the most treasured thing to be. To be now, here and now. That's the
ego.
But that's when you're conscious. And so rhythm is the driver of that. It's auditory driving. It's entrainment. It's all the things that are healthy, and and nature is efficient. It's most efficient. So you want to beat in time with your surroundings, with your nature, whether it be in the city or be in the country, in the forest, and so forth. You want to be entrained with your environment, and then be able to reflect on it and be able to talk about it in music to other people. And that's what we're here for.
Especially
in the groove, and help other people get in the groove.
And especially during a time like this.
Put them in rhythm. Put them in rhythm. Absolutely. What's wrong with the country now? It's out of rhythm. It's out of the groove. And by putting good rhythm into the world, it helps. Someone will be affected by that and do something good. And that's the most you can expect. That's what the Dalai Lama would say. He would say, as long as I'll paraphrase, he says, the sound, as long as it hits one human ear and it does some good, it's worth it. That would be paraphrasing His Holiness.
When's the first time you met?
He didn't say it exactly like that, but that's what he meant.
When's the first time you met the Dalai Lama? Because when I was at your house recording, I saw these pictures, and it's my heroes. I'm like, wow, there's Giovanni Hidalgo. There's Zakir Hussain.
Yeah.
There's Sikiru. I was like, oh, there's Mickey with the Dalai Lama. Wow. I'm just like,
well, as you know, I record his choir, his personal Kyoto Tantric choir.
I had that
I brought
record
over here in the '87, and so I became the recordist for His Holiness, and that's how I met him, through the choir, and because that's his sound. That's their sound. That's what the Tibetans sound like in chanting and trying to recreate a perfect universe within themselves. That's why they chant. They dissolve. Everything just falls away in the now, and they recreate a perfect universe. in their heads, in their bodies by using these Sanskrit, these chants, these sacred chants.
I told you that story, didn't I? When I had that, when I played that record, you remember it's right when I first got the gig with Dead and Company rehearsing. Anyway, a long time ago, I lived in this apartment building and had these French doors that opened out onto this courtyard, and it was wintertime, so the tree was bare, but that day wasn't particularly cold, so it's just a courtyard and this big tree, and I had the Gyuto monks playing, and I turned it up. And I'm going around doing whatever I'm doing, and I look back, and all the tree is completely black with birds, filled with birds, and they're all facing in this direction. Yeah. Wow. And I was like, what the fuck? So I'm like, I wonder if this has something to do with the monks, So I turn the sound down.
They fly away.
And the birds start flying away one at a time.
Wonderful story.
3, 4, 5. The tree's bare again. You can see right through it. Right?
Wonderful story. Wonderful.
And I'm like, I turn that thing back up, and each bird, they all come back, and they all face in one direction. And I was like, what the hell, man? This is crazy. Like, when the birds know, when the animals know, you got to be like, hey, man.
Yeah, close to nature, and you're talking, you're trying to reconnect to the origin sounds, the origin feelings, of the universe. And that's what they're doing. They're tapping in. And it's just wonderful just to be around them and listen to them, because their low note is at 70, I think it's 70 cycles, and fifth, and then there's the 11th partial. So they're singing 3 notes simultaneously. So they're holding the chord. Each larynx has the ability to hold the chord. So,
and even move that top note, because I've heard them hold like 2 here, right, and then move the top one up and down, and you're like, What?
Yeah.
What? That's crazy, man.
It takes you out there. It really does. I spent many hours out there, which I loved, because mixing them became, wonderful. Well, one time they came here, and there were 10 chanters. Not all monks chant. These are very specific monks. There's only a few of them left in the world, maybe 40 of them or so, in these schools, Gyuto and Kyume. There are 2 schools that do these tritones. And so anyway, it's a rare tradition, and it takes you out, definitely out of the zone. It's supposed to be that way. That's what it's meant to do. You have new priorities. The whole world is quite different. Just like when we play, we get in the zone and we're flying, and you don't think of, you think what's happening next. You don't think of what just happened. You're just there, and you're floating and you're flying, and everything is working, and all you're doing is being in the moment, and you're letting your skill and your feeling towards your brothers. Like my best times is when I'm making you look good, or making Bob look good, or Bill, enforcing playing with them and playing with them, as opposed to just playing with myself, as it were, which you can do in a band, just play the part. So I'm always interacting, always trying to make it better for everybody, of course, including myself. I know if you're grooving, I'm grooving.
Well, if we get in that, if you're in the groove and you're just like, it's like surfing, it's really the groove that you're just riding. It's like best ego remover of all time.
Isn't it?
Isn't
it?
Yeah. Squarely in the now, and just
everybody's the same in the groove. When you're in that moment, there's no priorities except the ones that happen in that very moment. What is happening right there, that you're in training with all of these organisms that are beating together within proximity. I mean, I can see you. I can, if you can see someone and you can hear someone, which is like feeling someone, feeling their presence. I know what's going through your body when I hear when you hit a note. I know how much commitment you have when you play a note, because I look for that, and being in the rhythm section, me, you, and Billy, That's the most important thing, because if we're not in the groove, nobody's in the groove. If we don't have it, they don't have it. So the responsibility is ours to be able to maintain that groove, no matter how far out we get. Whatever zone we go to, the most important thing is the responsibility of maintaining the groove and being in the moment. Those are the two things.
It's killing me right now hearing you describe all the ways we're connected and feeling each other. I'm sure all the fans are like, thanks a lot, guys. We can't have a concert. Now you're really...
Well, I'll tell you a real quick Jerry story. So first time we played a stadium, I played so hard because it was so big. And I never played in a stadium before. So I was trying to reach that guy way out there in the top row up the last. And I came off so exhausted. I mean, I couldn't walk. And Jerry, and I said, man, that was hard. He said, look, we got to get an intimate environment and atmosphere on the stage. Once we have our communication on the stage, we can send it out to hundreds of thousands of people. But you can't play for the guy in the back. You've got to play for yourself. And then all of a sudden, you connect with the audience. The audience lights up. They give you that feeling back, and then we give it back to them. And this goes on all night, and this is our conversation. And that's what it makes it fun. They're not just a bunch of people out there. They're really, like 40, 50, 60,000 people. That's a lot of energy coming at you. And if you're open to it, you play with it, and that's what we can do. That's what we do. For life. We play. That's the most important thing that we do in our lives. Really, I mean, musically speaking.
I think one of the funnest things to watch too is to see you and Billy back there, and when a camera or a shot goes to the two of you, it's like you're just chilling, you're just having a good time with each other. It's like you're on a ride together and you're sitting next to each other, and that's just so much fun to watch and to see you two feed off each other. And
yeah, it's so great. That's the most fun. I mean, that's one of the big get-offs, because if Bill and I don't agree exactly, then O'Teal's off, and then O'Teal's off, then the rest of those birds are off. They're just tweeting away in their universes, unless me and Bill really come to grips with the moment. Because I see Bill, and we talk before the show, hang out a little bit, so you get to feel someone before they hit the stage. So I kind of know what mood he's in, and but when we hit the stage, we look at each other, and that changes everything. Now all of a sudden, we are one. As soon as we look at each other and we recognize each other on the stage, we know what to do. And then we try to get a handle on our conversation. We are conversing. We have been having a conversation for, since the 60s, and it's always different every night. And so that's really a lot of fun. And then once we have our conversation, then O'Teal and I, and Billy and I, we talk to O'Teal, and then O'Teal talks to the rep that has a conversation. I know he has a different conversation with Bob as he does with me, and with Jeff. Everybody's communicating with each other, and they have an intimate communication. And also there's the group.
Yeah.
So it starts with me and Bill, and we get the foundation solid, build them out, but fluid.
Yeah.
It's got to be solid, but fluid. And once you're in that fluid, and then once you're doing some jujitsu here, we can do it in a beat. Sometimes we know where the groove is within one. Well, as soon as we close the beat, as soon as that 2 comes down, we know what the 3 will be exactly, and 4 and so forth. I mean, nuanced. Yeah. And sometimes we can do it like that. Other times we have to search for it. And everybody's searching around to find the groove du jour, which every day is different. It's the groove of the day, definitely. Right, O'Teal?
Definitely, man. I love that you guys met by going to see, at least this is what I heard and read, you were going to see one of my favorite drummers, Sonny Payne. with Count Basie.
Basie.
That
right.
Basie band, man. Oh my God.
Oh,
And
that's right. Yeah, that's how we met.
yeah, man.
Was that lightning right away? You with
Sonny
you
was
too?
a great. Sonny was a great drummer. You know, I mean, the Basie band was a badass band. I mean, the characters in that band were tough guys. You know, a lot of them were packing. You know, just being. Yeah, and
can you imagine being black on the road back then, and you're having to travel through
man,
America? I mean,
Eric.
like,
Oh no,
rough,
it was
man.
really hard, and they drank heavy, drank a lot of whiskey. All of them. They really at set break. They just walk back to the bar and just kick back 2 or 3 whiskeys and get back on the stage. And I can't believe how they did it. You know, I look at Sonny. How could you do that? You know, they used to get so drunk. And I can't imagine, because I couldn't even look at a glass of wine before I play, you know, I mean, or anything, you know, I mean, any kind of alcohol. So, but perhaps they didn't play so well a lot of times, but, you know, to them, it was a real slog.
Had to do it, man. That's great. You guys meeting. I love that story. Y'all meeting there, and then off it goes. You know.
Yeah, man, it was a great day. It was a great night, actually. We spent all night drumming the city. We went through the whole city. You know, we played on garbage cans, on street signs. We just went all the way from, I don't know where it was, Basin Street West. It's kind of like where the Fillmore is now, all the way across to the marina, where Janice was playing with Big Brother. And it was in this little club. It was actually a hallway. It was only it couldn't have been more than 24 feet wide. And it was just like that. And no stage. And they were just in the back there. And we went there, and she was so loud. I mean, James Gurley had his guitar up to his amp, and he was like this, and he was running the reverb, and then he threw it on the ground. And I never saw anything like that before. He just threw his guitar on the ground, and it was all with all reverb and all feeding back. And then Janice walks on and starts to sing, and then the band forms. And so Sonny Payne comes up. He found where I was, and so he came and sat behind me and Billy, and I couldn't believe it. I thought this was the most incredible thing. I never saw Janice, and she was just starting up, and blew my mind. Sonny said, "This is too loud for me," and I go, "I'm not going anywhere, Sonny. Bye bye." You know, and that was the last time I saw him. And,
wow.
And Bill and I stayed there. And I wound up in the closet, you know, in Bill's closet the next morning, I think. The only place in the house. Phil had a bedroom. Billy had a bedroom. Bob it was 4 of us, Phil and me and Bob. And Bill was at 710. No, Bill was there too. No, it was Billy as well as Phil and Bob.
How old were you then?
Oh God, 21, something like that.
Yes. So at that point, did you have any idea of like the Warlocks or any of that stuff, or was it just this?
I didn't
Billy,
know anything. I never heard I had heard the name, but I never seen the concerts. I wasn't really down into San Francisco too much. I lived out on the peninsula where I had a drum store, and Bill used to come in at the drum store, and I used to drum and teach him a few rudiments and so forth, and that's one of the reasons. Then he asked me to come down and hear his band somewhere in the Mission in the garage. And I drove around the Mission. I couldn't find it. I had a garage with a band playing, so I said, "Oh, forget it." And then he come to the store and he says, "Oh, I miss seeing you. Why don't you come down to the Straight Theater where we're playing tonight?" So I went down the Straight, and they were playing. And during the intermission, Billy says, "You want to sit in?" And I go, "Sure." I don't have any drums. He said, "Okay, no problem." and he gets in his Mustang. He had a Mustang, just bought a Mustang, a little Mustang, and I don't know if I went with him. I can't remember if I went. He went and got it in the intermission. He went and got a drum set, brought it back to the Straight Theater, and set it up. And then I played, and I hadn't met the guys.
Oh wow!
I hadn't met anybody.
So wild.
And we played a long time, and it was really serious because I had never heard the music, and so it was all new to me. And but I put my head down, and we played like the gods or something, and everybody's high, and but I do remember knowing where the back exit was. I remember saying, a drummer always has to know where the exit is, tomatoes or whatever it is. Right. So it stopped. Music just dissipated after hours, and everybody was still, and nobody moved. But I could see the dust or whatever coming through a light coming down like that, and the audience was totally silent, and freaked me out. I never been in a place like that with the audience. You couldn't hear the audience. There wasn't that many of them. There might have been 1,000 people in there, 900 people, 800 people. And then I got off the drum seat, and I started to move towards the exit. and as I was just lifting off, they go, ah. They go, cool, that's great. I loved it too, and Jerry we all grab around, we all hug each other and stuff. And Jerry said, this is the Grateful Dead. We could take this around the world. And yeah, sure. Of course we can, or you can. And then, so that's it. Then that's when I wound up in Bill's house, after that night, now that I remember. And the only place they had was a closet, a long closet. And the stairs went up to the top. So I only had half a closet, but it was the best closet I have ever been in my life. It was wonderful. Only one small little mattress, a little candle, a little record player, tiny little record player. And that's it.
That was your cocoon phase.
All it was. And it was wonderful. So, that was the story of, the short of the long of it.
Wow. Man, that is unbelievable, man. That's like
just like that.
Not even knowing the guys and just being like,
no,
there's a second drummer back there.
It just was meant to be. It's like someone said, you don't sign up, you don't sign out of the Grateful Dead. You either are or you're not. And so this was the Grateful Dead. Now we had the power, all this flexibility, that 2 engines powering this thing. It was just too much for them, and they loved it, and I loved it, and it worked.
It was, and it's just when you're listening before before the internet, when you could Google who's this band, who's that band, and you see what they look like, and you can hear every single song at the touch of a finger. When you're getting to listen to the Grateful Dead at an early age, and you hear that, man, there's so much more beef to it. There's so much more substance to it, and you hear a Passenger from '77. And there's that break with Nothing to Hide, and it's just like, holy shit, these guys is there an octopus playing drums? And then you learn, wow, they had 2 drummers. That's amazing. And it's just so wide. And then the Almonds and just all of the fun, it's so unique and powerful when you're, it was just such a fun thing to listen to. Drums in Space, that was like a soundtrack to my nights as a kid. I would just put on Dead Set and just let it go. And that was just so much fun.
I never played with another drummer before, another trap drummer. That was the first time.
Wow.
It's not easy. You have to sacrifice something to be a greater whole, a compromise, let us say, and become one. Like, he doesn't play the same, and nor do I play the same when we play alone. When we play together, it's a whole other thing. It's just something different. But we worked at it. We lived in the Castle for a while. We called it the Castle down in L.A. making the records. Was it Live Dead or one of the earlier records? And Bill and I would practice 10, 12 hours a day. We practiced so much, and we would be able to split his left hand, my right hand, and we would even be able to do rolls with, we had our hands around each other back so we could really feel the vibrations in each other. So we really practice it. It's not something that, that just happened. Once we knew that we had electricity and we had some kind of connection, then you would have to make it, a world-class act and not just fumble over each other, which happens a lot with two traps. You have to have another kind of connection, a spiritual, a love, a trust. All of those things come into play when you're playing with other rhythmists. That's the most important thing. You have to have the trust, because you're flying, and you have to know that your co-pilot is flying with you.
You guys have moved through a lot of different styles and stuff. Like, I know you started out with drum corps and stuff, and you obviously were into jazz if you were going to see Basie and see Sonny Payne, and you went straight from Basie to Janis Joplin, and so, and that's, I love that kind of thing where you're listening to and playing and checking out. Makes me think of like some of the other stuff you started to get into, like Olatunji, and when did you get hooked into that kind of stuff? And Olatunji, I guess, you met him before.
That was 1959. I was in Spain, and all of the jet set was listening to Drums of Passion. Olatunji, drum, vocal, first percussion, vocal, African record really to hit our shores. And it was a big hit, sold millions of records. It was underground at the time. And once I heard that talking drum and I heard those polyrhythms, that was it. I go, wow, I want to do that. I love that. And so that was the first time. Then he came to San Francisco in '87, and I had never seen him play. And Carlos had seen him once in the park, and he saw the drummers and stuff, and that's when he added his congas and and he took Olatunji's song, a couple of them, and did it on his first Jingo Ba Ba Go Ba, all that stuff. That was Olatunji. So Baba came to town, and I went to see him, and then he was this little club. Joel Selvin was there. I remember that. That's one only thing. And Chris Isaacs with Joel, and we were marching through. I just got in the drum line after they played, and I just got in it, and I grabbed a cowbell, and we just roamed around the club with him. And then afterwards, he didn't know who I was or anything. I just joined the group. I couldn't stop. And then I said, Mr. Olatunji, I have a band that's playing at the Oakland Coliseum, and I would really be honored if you would open for us. And so he didn't know Grateful Dead or anything. He had never heard of Grateful Dead. So then the next day he calls back, oh, yes, yeah, I'd love to do it. Because he didn't say, I don't know. And so he opened for us at Oakland Coliseum in '87. We filmed it, and which never released, which I still have. And that's when my relationship with Olatunji started. It just turned out that Baba was like a whole other thing to thousands of drummers here in America. They all wanted to study and be turned on by Baba. And so he had all the Deadheads would be following him everywhere, and he would give them classes and so forth. And turned out to be a wonderful force in our world. So,
absolutely. He was a big presence in my house, and that's how I learned African drums. This guy from Ghana named Kojo Baden. we actually had the same birthday. We're both born on August 24th, and we had this big African ceremony in Anacostia Park in Washington, D.C. I think it was my 7th birthday. And no doubt, man, all that drumming with Kojo Baden, and they taught you what the dances meant and the dances.
Always a dance, always a dance.
And,
drums, dance, drum.
Yang.
Like that.
Got to go together. And that's what I go click back into when I get up with you guys on Drums in Space. Like back with Kojo Baden, man. Those polyrhythms are flying, and I'm just...
They're flying. Flying by.
Like DMT, man.
Oh, boy.
Nothing is better than that to me.
No, you made a great devil. A rhythm devil.
But that's probably why. It's probably that Olatunji connection and the Sonny Payne and the everything, we just have a lot, and that's all thanks to my dad and my mom. Really, they really were such a musical education, just being in that house. When's the first time you met Zakir? Because I love the way you put these groups together, and all the different combinations.
Met Zakir. Phil gave me a record. One day, Phil gave me a record called Drums of North and South India. He just handed it to me. He said, "You should hear this." And I went to my closet and I put the record on and I just listened to it. And I didn't read the cover. And it sounded like all these drummers playing. And I couldn't understand the rhythm, but there were a lot of drummers playing. And then I read on the back that there was only one drummer. Really, his name was Alaraka, and he was the ultimate tablaist at the time. He played with Ravi Shankar for 25, 30 years. He was a drummer at Monterey and so forth. So in 68, I think it was, or 67, I found out he was in New York City and went to see him. He had him in his apartment. And I asked him, we started talking to each other. We had tea and everything. And I had my drum pad, and I asked him, could he teach me something, and so that was the beginning. So I became his student. Little did I know that he had a son. So the drum set is one of the loudest percussion instruments in the world, and the tabla is one of the quietest. These little drums, finger drums, not bang, bang. So he says, I can't play with you because you're too loud and I'm too quiet, but I have a son. He could play with you. And so then in 1970s, there's a knock on the door, and my name is Zakir. My father sent me to you, or something like right out of The Godfather. He said, and all of a sudden they said, Zakir Hussain, come on in. It was at the barn in Novato, and that was the beginning. Rolling Thunder, 1970.
Wow.
Rolling Thunder.
So it's all those years, and then we made Diga and Planet Drum. He's a founding member of Planet Drum with Olatunji.
Diga, man, that's the one I was meditating to. Diga really took me into a great place. I mean, all of them do, but
that was the beginning. That was the rhythm record. They said that's what started what they call world music. That was that record, but that started it all. That was the beginning of my percussion and experiences. Big time. I had to learn a lot to be able to play along with Zakir. He was very complicated. These guys, it's from another world. So I had to really focus if I'm going to do this. And so we composed things in 10 1/4, 205 beats, 102.5 beats. We were composing in the most difficult time signatures with Zakir. I thought that everybody in India did it. I thought, no, you don't understand. There's only one person can do that, and that's Zakir, and the other one was Alaraka. So that influence helped when I went back to the Dead, with the 11 and the playing the band in 10, and all of these other signatures that we started using because we had 2 drums. One drum set go one way, 3 guys go with it. One guy go with it. 3 guys will go with that, and all of a sudden we have 2 bands that also can talk within each other, and also one entity and all kinds of different crazy combinations. And that's what happened while I was studying with Ala Raka and Zakir. And that's one of the reasons the band became, that kind of fluid, in odd times, so forth.
So I love how you spread it out too, like Giovanni Hidalgo.
Yeah.
So you had like the Afro-Cuban thing going on, and you had Sikiru. How did you meet Sikiru through?
Sikiru through Olatunji.
Through Olatunji, that's what I figured.
Yeah, Nigeria, and then Zakir from India, and Baba from Nigeria, and Viku from South India played the Gatam, and Flora Purim and Ayrton from Brazil. So it was really quite a thing. They were all my friends, and they didn't know each other. I knew all of them. And so I made the call, a drum call. I said, okay, I got, how about, let's meet at, my house at blah, blah, when we play. And that was no expectations or anything. So people met, we played. It was almost all first takes. It was done in a week. And it won a Grammy, sold a hunk of records, and it really put percussion on the map as far as music goes. It was number one in Billboard for 52 weeks or something like that. Almost a year. Wow. So it was, and it was it won the first Grammy for a world music. It actually started that category. Wow. They didn't know where to put all the stuff I was doing. And so they said that this was world music because it was world fusion music or something. There really isn't anything like called world music. You understand? I called the Grammy guy up. I said, hey, man, thanks for the Grammy, but there's no such thing as world music.
Otherworldly music.
I mean, it's the world's music. It all depends geographically where you are is what you consider world music. You could be in the Philippines and think that the music from Arkansas, is world music. It all depends. Yeah. It's geographically specific, it's culturally specific. So, so that's what happened. And I met Giovanni Hidalgo, the great conguero, the best in the world, through Ayrton. And he came from that jazz world. He played Dizzy Gillespie. He was the center of the band. And Dizzy Gillespie band. He was the band with Dizzy.
I mean, to have him and Zakir in the same band is just like
I know.
And Sikiru and just like
I didn't know how it was going to go because when you put maestros together, it's delicate. I mean, normally, they try to overplay each other or to compete with each other or something is not right. In this case, it was just perfect. And everybody had such a blast. After 5-6 days, I said, "Oh, go home. We did it," And
get out of my closet.
Huh?
You said, "Get out of my closet."
Yes, stay out of my closet. So come to my closet because my closets are it's very rhythmic in my closet. And then Francis Coppola came to see me and Billy Rhythm Devils at 1978. At Winterland, and he wanted his new movie, which hasn't been made, to sound like that. He had the Rhythm Devils, and it was Apocalypse Now.
Unbelievable.
And so that was a whole other one. Then we had to build the beast and all the ring and all that stuff. All the instrument building came out of Apocalypse. Then I said, wow, Francis, there are no instruments that can do that. I have to build them. And that's so me and Ramrod took over Bill Graham's workshop for 3 weeks and took all of his staff and everything and built the beast. The home plate, right, left eye. All came from Apocalypse. The Beam. That was Napalm. If you listen to Apocalypse, every time you see Napalm, you'll hear the Beam. It was the perfect instrument for Napalm. The one instrument. Francis said, I spent $200,000 to get the sound of napalm, and you just did it like that. I said, wrong instrument, wrong orchestra. He spent $200,000 or something on an orchestra and synthesizers to get the sound of napalm. It says, which is not easy. It's a difficult sound if you don't have the right instrument.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Was the
Indeed.
movie? So did you guys make the music for Apocalypse Now after or during the recording of the? Like, did you get to see the movie and then record, or was it before? Did he build the movie around me? It's just
no,
such
we built the instruments first.
Yeah.
Built the instruments first. I didn't want to record until I had these gigantic sounds,
Right.
because that was war. That was the soundtrack to it. Big, loud, boomy sounds of explosions and so forth. And so yeah, so we built the drums and all these other instruments, put them all at Front Street, and we just went in there with Ayerto and me and Bill. Phil was a little bit part of it too, and went in and started playing Apocalypse Now music. Francis didn't want me to do it scene by scene. He's such a visionary. He wanted me to do it from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, all in one take. He wanted me to go up the river for Kurtz, just like the story goes. He wanted me to go right up to. So the film was just playing over and over and over, and we would play through the film and go on that adventure with the movie. Which so cool. which was insane. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to play, sometimes we'd have to stop and do spotting. We'd have to really make real hits and so forth. But that was the spirit that Francis had over us.
That's incredible.
Yeah, such a variety. Oh, you go ahead, man.
No. I'm sorry. No, you go ahead, Otil. I'm having such a good time listening. I wanted to ask about Jerry. I was going to ask him about. I don't want to keep you too long. I have to ask you. I'd regret it forever if I didn't just ask you about Jerry, your feelings about Garcia, your relationship with him. You think about him every day still. You see him. Is he there?
He's back in my left ear. Always. The ear that he deafened. With his auxiliary speakers behind my left ear. Yeah, he's in my head a lot. All I have to do is listen, and he becomes very, very vivid. I feel a lot of things, about Jerry. Jerry and I were very good friends because we would ride in the first van, the first, car to the gig always. Bob was always in the second and third and Phil and so forth. But we always went in the car, in the limo. And that was such a great time to get to know somebody because, as you know, on the road, we don't get to talk to each other very much because we're moving, playing, resting up and so forth. Well, all those years, we shared the same car and the same band. So we got to know each other really well. And of course, it was like getting hit with a baseball bat, when I found out. It was very traumatic. I knew it was the end of the Grateful Dead immediately. When I walked into my yoga teacher who lived over the hill in a little cabin, and I looked at him, and I walked up and I looked at him, he looked at me, and I said, "What's happening?" He had music playing, and he never had music play. And I said, "What's the music?" And he said, "Haven't you heard?" And as soon as he said that, I knew exactly. I knew it. Wow. I knew what had happened. I mean, we expected it for a long time, for many years. He was living on borrowed time, as you know. The funny thing, he was clean when he died. I know. Yeah. He cleaned up and died. No, but it was his heart gave out, and he had all the cholesterol in his, from all the diabetes things, and just eating burgers and shakes, and not taking care of himself. So, but he died with a smile on his face. That was another thing you take away. But look what he did, for all those years, and how vast the throw of the Grateful Dead is now spiritually, and community is still together. The music still flows. So he's very much a part of here now. I feel him with him. especially, of course, on celebrating these events. I planted 3 redwood trees, which are kind of blue redwood, kind of rare, and one for each decade. I mean, 10 years was another, represent each tree. So I usually go there. It's Jerry's place, and we go there and we get high, we have barbecue, we enjoy each other, we celebrate. And sometimes if there is somebody related in Grateful Dead land here, he tells stories, and smoke a lot of good cannabis and tell a lot of good stories.
Yeah, it makes me, I try to keep in my head, to keep that balance, because the road can kill you if you let it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's all you.
Yeah.
But the road, it makes it easier to just fall into just bad habits. It's not a natural.
Right. They celebrate
thing,
it.
It's you really have to have you really have to apply some effort to keep things.
Yeah.
But I've seen it so much, even with my friends who are a lot younger. I've buried enough of them. Just have to balance it out.
You have to celebrate all this, O'Teal. I mean, there's nothing to be, to go down in the dumps about. I mean, we had a great run. We did as much as we possibly could with who we had and the time we had to do it in. And I'm really proud of what we did. Look around. The Grateful Dead is a positive in a negative world, and they have to remember that's one thing you can count on, that we were for the good. And we did good things. We played played our hearts out most of the time, and treated our fans, as best you possibly could, and always had them in mind. Didn't charge a lot of money, and all of that kind of stuff. And gave a lot of it away. So it was a very positive, like I said, in a very negative world on fire, world out of rhythm.
And all your solo stuff was like that. I love, especially the time we're living in now, where we're finally dealing with race and the divisions and all this stuff. But I look at, the records you did where you pulled all these things together, created world music.
Yeah.
I mean, there's such obscure records for me that I kept finding out that you produced. This before I was really into the Dead. This is from Colonel Bruce Hampton.
Yeah.
I would just be like that. I think that's how I found out about the Guto monks.
Yeah.
And recently, like right before getting the Dead and Company gig, I wanted to hear music of like ancient Egypt, because he used to call me O'Teal from Egypt. He's the one that gave me the nickname because my name is Egyptian.
Oh.
I was like, well, I know you can hear the influences of Egyptian music all through the Middle East, and Arabic and
yeah,
all the Middle Eastern musics.
Right.
But I thought, the religion and language, all this stuff says they come from the South. I was like, I need to hear some Nubian music. I called Colonel Bruce. I go, you know any Nubian music? Well, in a millisecond, he goes, Hamza El Din. I'm like, okay, how do you spell that? And I get this record, and it's like produced by Mickey Hart. I'm like, Mickey Hart produces every time I find some different, so far, Guto monks, Nubian music, and then boom, you bring all this stuff together. That is just like, that's what I wish the world could see and hear that more right now.
Absolutely.
It all works together great. Like, how did you meet Hamza El Din? That stuff just killed me. I played banjo with it.
Oh, isn't it something?
Oh, it's just...
the king of quiet. He was so quiet, but he was so articulate and so committed at such a quality low level.
So intense. Like, it's such intensity.
Yeah, it's the soft side of percussion. He would romance that drum. It was called a tar, and that's what one of the things that the Middle East has, and all those those instruments come from there. The single membranes. You could travel with them, go on a camel, or or ride a bicycle with them. And so, yeah, I love that. Now, if you want to hear not the whole scope of it, but part of it, you can go to the Smithsonian Folkways, and you go Smithsonian Folkways, and you look up the Mickey Hart collection.
That's what I wanted to get to, like how you started doing that, Smithsonian Folkways.
I'm on the board there, so but besides that, before I was on the board, they took the collection. So how did I do that?
Or how did it start?
In the field, recording with your Nagra. That's how you do it. And with a great love and respect for the world's music. And also because you look at the world's music and it was never recorded well. It was always recorded at 3 3/4 or some small, inferior rate. And
a lot of it is really old too. That Alan Lomax, I'm sure you heard all that stuff. That was a big influence on me.
I knew Alan. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah, I knew Alan.
That stuff kills.
Yeah,
me.
so I said, I want these musics to be as good as the Grateful Dead. I mean, I wanted to sound just like we would be making a record. And I also wanted to put it in a wrapper, like a sleeve, and give all the information, just like you would on a Grateful Dead record. So each one of these productions, I was producing it at the highest level. And you never heard world music there before. And that's why this collection became so valuable, was because it's all recorded at 15 IPS or 30 IPS with a Nagra. The best recording machine that was ever built for the field, built like a tank and a Swiss watch. And Nagra never stopped. I was in the Arctic Circle, it fired, bang. It was in the rainforest, of Thailand or Bali, fired. Whether you're, I always put it in record, and it always became red, no matter what, no matter where I was. It never failed me once. And all those remote recordings in the worst places, desert. I recorded for a month after we left Egypt in '78. We played in front of the pyramids. Bye, guys. I stayed there. I wasn't going to go back. I stayed there for a month, going up and down the Nile, recording the cafe music. Never released it.
Wow.
I have them all. But I did release the Hamza record. I made that with them, Hamza.
Yeah, and he came back to the U.S. afterwards and played with you guys, right? Right after that Egypt tour.
That's right.
When you guys returned to San Francisco.
That's right. He played, and the whole in Winterland. And everybody,
so awesome. Yeah.
He had them clapping, like 5,000 people clapping together. I mean, wow. So cool.
Well, that was one of the added perks of being a rabid Dead fan that appreciated what you guys appreciated, was that it was almost like you were giving us a key to like 8 different doors, where I got to travel down each of your wormholes, where I could go with Jerry Band all the way to like, Howard Wales and the bluegrass stuff, and New Riders and all of this. And then, what Bobby would do with Kingfish and Sea Stones, and then the stuff that you did. And it was just so amazing to have that. I learned about so many other bands and the roots for me, and that was such an awesome gift that you gave us.
Well, thank the Grateful Dead too. I was allowed to do whatever I wanted to. Everybody knew that if I was going to bring somebody into the band, they had to be happening, and everybody enjoyed every one of those. Jerry used to call them my enthusiasms. He said, "Follow Mickey's enthusiasms." Enthusiasm. That's how we refer to it. But he was always very supportive. Matter of fact, he named Drumming at the Edge of Magic, and that was his idea. Drumming at the Edge of Magic. I mean, just the name, because we were at the edge of magic. We were playing. We were taking psychoactive drugs and playing together for with all of our strength and all of our our hearts, and so it became a very spiritual thing to us. And those people that came in nurtured our scene. And like you said, that was very nice of you to say that. And that's exactly what happened. Exactly.
Yeah, well, it was nice of you to do it.
And it wasn't about being nice. I was hungry for it. I always wanted to hear these great musics reproduced through the best PA. Olatunji in Oakland Coliseum through a Grateful Dead PA. I couldn't even dream of that, but when he did it, and we ran tape on it, I got in the middle and mixed him at the mixing console, and I mixed him at the same level as the Grateful Dead would be. I mean, I pounded it, and it was just chilling. I had a hard time keeping my eyes on the needles, so to speak. The meters were going crazy, and I was, oh wow, this is great, and it was. Everybody loved it.
It reminds me, man, I've got to get you together with Weedy Brema. To me, he's the Olatunji of our generation.
Oh.
So he's like, I think one side, 111th generation Ghanaian drummer, right? And both mom and dad. And then the other side, I think he's like, he told me his story. His grandfather, I think, he'll correct me if I'm wrong. We'll get him on here one time. His grandfather didn't believe that women should play drums. And then
that's right.
He saw his grandmother play drums and asked her to marry him.
I mean, that's not right. Never let a woman play a drum. Once you give them the drum, they might want to vote.
But yeah, this dude is so intense, man. Like, I want to get him up with us so bad. But once you see him play djembe,
give him a drum, they want to vote. Then they'll want to.
Can't take the Brooklyn out of the drummer, man. That's right.
But the real story is that the women were the first drummers in the mother goddess cultures of ancient Europe, about 5,000 BC. The women had the drums. The women controlled the ritual. They used large cylinder drums. At least that's what Marija Kambudas' archaeological find says. When I discovered there were large cylinder drums in the Paleolithic, I go, wow. So the women controlled the rituals. They made the laws, and they controlled the drums. They controlled the rhythm of what was going on. And, women were the first drummers.
Yeah.
And then we took them away. We took the drum away. We were evil Kurgans coming down from the north. We came down on them.
Caveman, bonk on the head.
We're Kurgans, and we're coming down, and we're making your peaceful mother goddess civilizations, and we're going to take the drum away from you, and we're going to take it over, and we're going to make it into a war instrument. And then the Mongols brought it back, and all of a sudden the women were playing little tambourines and ching, 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 ching cymbals, and we had the big drums. So that's the story of that. Yeah, the short of the long of it.
Well, they'll have their time again,
That's right.
Well, now there are a lot of women drummers, and they're good.
Oh, they're so good.
They're good.
More and more. Bring them on. And a lot of the women bass players, man, are killing it. Just killing.
Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? See the women pick up the instruments and play with us. Yeah. And that's really
all over the world too, man. There's this lady named Mohini Day. She's Indian lady, young. I mean, I would call her a girl, but she's a young woman. I just see them all over the place. It's really great. It's great to see.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is the white gals. You see, they are really picking up on the rhythm. They got connected to the polyrhythms of Africa. Basically, they're grooving to rhythms that were born in Africa.
And that's like a mofo.
Well, that's what the motherland. That's the motherland. Of rhythm. Really, that's what came out of Africa. Of course, the Indian system is much more complicated and more classical, whereas the percussion that comes from Africa is polyrhythmic and, of course, is geographic, like maniac. Everything is different, everywhere there. But all of these drum languages are still spoken, because the drum was used as a telegraph in the old days. The talking drums, they called them, but they were slit gongs, slit drums they call them. They're not drums, they're gongs, but slit gongs used to be communication between a village. They would send it to one listening post, and the other guy would get that. He would pass on the news. The next station would get it, pass on the news. So it became a telegraph before electricity and before all of these things went down. But drums were really a vital part of community in Africa, especially.
That's why it damaged the black community, the African community here in America, because they figured that out after a couple of slave revolts, that they were communicating with the drums, and they took them away. So you take the drum away from African culture, you just
that's it.
Cut the heart out of it and throw it in the trash, And it really did. It all
came from Nigeria, the slave trade, pretty much.
And that's why New Orleans is so important, because of the French influence. For some reason, they allowed black people to keep their drums, and so the jazz and the funk and all this stuff comes out of there. Wow. Those great drum traditions. That's why New Orleans is that's my Mecca that I do my Hajj to, man, because that's where the drums in North America, United States of America, were allowed to exist.
It's the birthplace. It's a birthplace of modern music, in New Orleans, but they were only the slaves were only allowed to have their. Are we still there?
Yeah.
They're only allowed to have their rituals on Sunday. They didn't have their drums. They would give them their drums on Sunday, and
Congo Square,
or Lake Pontchartrain, the two places that they were allowed to go into their rituals of Santeria, Candomblé. All of these are the Shango. These are all gods from Nigeria, West Africa, and Christianized when it came over here. They came over through Bahia, Brazil, up through Central America, and they landed in Haiti. And there was a giant free slave revolt at the end of the 1700s, and all the energy went. Now they all went to New Orleans, where it all came together. All the piano playing, all of the that Marie Laveau.
Yeah.
Oh, and I would
read some of the newspaper articles about her.
I would love to have been the drummer for Marie Laveau. Now that would be a good gig back then. When, So that was the birthplace of jazz. That's where Mississippi, the river took it up north to Chicago, Kansas City, New York, all of that riverboat music, all of that jelly roll stuff, and just right up the river, and mixed with Appalachian music and so forth, and became what we know as jazz. And then, of course, rhythm and blues, and then, of course, rock and roll. And it all came out of New Orleans at Congo Square. And the thing about Congo Square is people don't, even in New Orleans, they don't treat it right. It's not kept well. It's not recognized as the birthplace of music in America. It's just not honored. I had a thing about that. I never understood why the city wouldn't honor the birthplace of music in America, North America.
Well, the musicians know, though. And to me, it's my highest honor that I am loved and respected by my favorite New Orleans musicians.
Yeah.
Be getting to play with Zig, from the Meters, and George and all those guys, and, Ivan Neville and all the bands down there, man. I've really loved that music, and have relatives, I think a great-great-grandmother or something that was
Didn't you tell me you found out during like an ancestry thing that?
Yeah, you'll love this, Mickey. My aunt started doing all this ancestry stuff. Let me back up. My dad's brother found all these genealogical records with the Mormons because a lot of blacks don't know where they came from, and we didn't know up until 5 or more years ago. And my dad's brother found this records with the Mormons, and turns out we're from Nigeria. So on my dad's side, a tribe called the Igbo, which are known as the Black Jews of West Africa.
That's right. That's right.
So my aunt starts doing this ancestry.com stuff, and she goes down the rabbit hole. Well, then one time I was like, I want to find out, you hear, now that I know I'm Nigerian and Igbo, I want to get my DNA test, so I do the DNA test, and sure enough, it comes out mostly Igbo, a lot of British. And so, I forgot my train of thought now.
New Orleans.
Oh yeah. So my aunt goes, "Hey, there's some guy that we found from when you did your DNA test. Then it linked up with all these other people, and so she said there's some guy that I think you're related to in New Orleans." And I was like, "Sweet," And she goes, "Do you know somebody named Chris Royal?" And I was like, "I played like how many gigs with this guy, like Jazz Fest." So I get a text from him. Apparently, she contacted his, but he's like, "Yo, what's up, cuz?" So the very first time I got to see the original version of the Meters in New Orleans, finally, his mom was there because I think he was playing horns with him. And so I'm on stage, George and Zig put me on the list, and I'm sitting on stage. Finally, I thought it was, and Chris goes, "Hey man, I want you to meet my mom." Now, Chris doesn't really look like me and my family,
Yeah.
And but his mom turns around, and boom, I just see my mom's side of the family screaming at me. Like if I had met her on the street, I would have looked at her like wondering if we're related, And I was like, wow, I have this blood in New Orleans. It was just a feeling, So
Wow.
all this happened really recently, like just finding out where you come from.
Yeah.
Just a basic thing like that. Something.
Yeah. Well, I know I came from the rhythm world, some rhythm world somewhere out there, or many rhythm worlds, and it just never let me go. I started when I was about 4 years old, maybe playing on, just like every kid playing on dishes and tables and playing the practice pad out of there and all that. But yeah, I started early, and it never let me go. All the years, I could never shake it. Not that I wanted to, but it never left me. I did bring a trumpet home at one time in high school. I brought a flute home. I brought a violin home. I brought a baritone horn home. But that only lasted, a week each, maybe. And then
End up just playing that with drumsticks.
Then back to the drums. It just was nothing better.
Yeah.
Anyway, O'Teal, it's been nice chatting with you. The Sonic Tonic Club is signaling me that we're about to meet, and I will. And I have to go.
5 years ago, we were at Soldier Field, and at the end of it, you stood up there and you said, "Please be kind. Take this feeling that we have and bring it home and do something with it." And that sentiment echoes louder today than ever before. So thanks for saying that. And it didn't go unheard.
Well, I hope not. I didn't think about it at all. I never even thought about saying anything. I just started walking off, and there was this microphone in front of me, and Bob's mic, and I had never felt anything quite like those shows. I thought those shows, as far as the energy in the audience and just the awe of it, it was just an awe in the whole stadium. It wasn't like they were clapping from here. It was they were clapping from here.
Yeah.
And I felt that they took that energy and did some good with it, and just, of course, be kind, of course, but the energy should never be left at a Grateful Dead or Dead Co concert. It shouldn't be left there. It should be taken home, and you do something with it, use it, that energy that we conjured in 4 hours should not be wasted. It has to be used for something of the good. If it's not, then we haven't done our job.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, man, for everything.
I'll leave you on that. Thank you so much, Mike. OT.
A pleasure.
I'll see you.
Come back soon.
I'll see you again.
Absolutely.
Thanks everyone for listening. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you, Oteil. Love you. Love you.
That's perfect, dude.
Love can fill